Welcome to the Empower Her podcast. I'm Deanna, an ex-corporate manager turned certified coach, empowering you to create the life of your dreams. My goal is to guide you and support you in understanding what you really want in life, what steps to take to get there, and learn to actually enjoy the ride. Whether you are climbing the corporate ladder, a stay-at-home parent, or an entrepreneur, I coach you on how to believe you are worthy of a balanced, happy, and energetically positive life in work and at home. My goal in this podcast is to help you recognize patterns, implement change, and use your energy for positivity within yourself and your own life. I believe you don't have to suffer in this lifetime. You can create a life on your terms based on what you want, regardless of what that looks like. It is about reframing your beliefs, letting go of negative thoughts, and looking at your life as a set of opportunities there for you. I'm so excited to get started. Hi there, and welcome back to the Empower Her podcast. I don't know about y'all, but where I am right now, it's 5 million degrees. I'm in an inferno, in a sauna. It is bananas. And y'all know I was waiting for summer. I love the heat, but this is some crazy global warming that's happening. It's never this hot here. It's like literally like upper 90s. It's insane. So, if you're feeling hot where you are too, I feel you. Stay hydrated, stay cool, sending you all the good vibes. And speaking of vibes, today I want to speak to you if you're a company, if you're a founder, if you're a leader of an organization. I want to talk to you about being more inclusive in the workplace, specifically towards neurodivergent folks. Okay, because here's the thing. I'm going to give you the statistic. 1 in 5 people in the workplace are neurodivergent. Okay, that's 20%. So what does that look like? Who's neurodivergent, right? Neurodivergent basically just means your brain works differently. It can be someone with ADHD, someone on the autism spectrum, with learning disabilities, and more. But really what it means is your brain works differently. And at the end of the day, society as it is right now is built for neurotypical people. And that's a problem, right? I talk about this all the time, that this is a problem. But if 20% of the population is neurodivergent, isn't it worth supporting them? So I'm speaking to you as a coach, as a consultant. I'm speaking to you people in leadership roles, CEOs, head of HR, or even just any place in HR, or even if you're a team member. This is going to be an important message today, an important topic about how we can be more inclusive and why we should be supporting people whose brains work differently. Because at the end of the day, it's actually to our benefit. Neurodivergent individuals bring amazing ideas, creative ideas. There's a reason, right, why we have people on this earth. I truly believe that from a spiritual perspective, we need the differing opinions and the different people. We need this. We absolutely need this. So let's talk about it today, okay? So first I want to give you some tips or some signs, things to look for that could mean someone's neurodivergent, but really just means that they need support, right? And I just want to preface this by saying is we should never be asking someone if they're neurodivergent. That's a big no-no. If they want to share it, if they want to tell you, great, but we shouldn't be asking them. However, we can look for signs and then we can better support them, right? Anyways, if you're a leader, if you're a head of a company, you should be looking at signs on how you can better support your team, right? Like that's completely normal. But here are some additional signs you can look for that could indicate neurodivergence, but really just mean that someone's brain works different and we should be supporting them. So communication is a big one, right? People prefer different types of communication, whether it's written, verbal, the way they get feedback, right? That's super important to understand how someone wants to be communicated with, communicated to, and how they want feedback. And again, this episode is great because it's for also people who are neurotypical. It's about asking for what you want so you can take lessons as well. If you're listening to this and you're neurotypical and you're saying, how does this apply to me? It applies to you because I know y'all, I know the clients I work with, you have a hard time advocating for yourself. So I'm giving you the tools here on things that you can advocate for in the workplace. So if you're neurotypical, listen up because this is going to be just as important for you as well, okay? So communication, understanding what type of communication is better. Also the way you interpret language, difficulty understanding idioms, jokes, or sarcasm, your interpretation of things, right? We shouldn't assume people are just rude or they don't get our joke. Maybe their brain just isn't understanding what you're saying in the same way. So being open to different types of communication is definitely super, super important. Challenges with small talk, social nuances, not everyone is good at that, right? I had a lot of team members that I worked with in corporate when I was a manager who I don't know if they were neurodivergent because I didn't ask and they didn't say anything, but the way they socialized was different and they didn't love being in big groups and they liked having one-to-one conversations instead. They didn't love going to the social events, right? They didn't love the small talk with the stakeholders. So we had to adjust the way we did our calls, adjust the way we held our meetings so that it would be good for them and so that they could get the most out of it. And again, that's what we're talking about, is like really making those changes. And I will be talking about towards the end how we can make those changes. You want to look at how someone works. Do they have a difficulty multitasking, right? Do they have difficulty with change in routines? Do they exhibit hyper focus on certain things, right? Do they, have an issue with the way they multitask, time management, manage their projects? Those are things we want to look at because we can support them by giving them more specific deadlines or having more frequent check-ins with them, right? It's going to be very, very important to look at. Another thing that is very typical of neurodivergent individuals is sensitivity to sensory inputs such as noise, light, smells, right? It's really important for certain people to have a workspace where they feel comfortable. And that's why it's important to create that in the office, but also allow for work from home, which I will talk about in a little bit, and my very, very strong stance on that. But just being in that, quiet, distraction-free environment, right? Like that's going to be very important for some people in order for them to be able to focus. I know these kind of sound negative, but honestly, everything is positive in my mind. At least we can frame it that way. But some more positive aspects is neurodivergent individuals tend to display extreme amounts of creativity and innovative thinking in certain areas. So how can we use that for the benefit? How can we take their creative ideas and use it in what we're doing, right? Like we want to use that to our benefit, and their ability to hyper focus and hyper process, like that's incredible. And we want to be able to use that and we want them to feel comfortable. Okay. And again, certain people may just need time and better support with deadlines and with their attention to detail. Something else that they could need is needing fidgeting or coping mechanisms to focus in meetings. Like I have a neurodivergent client that I work with one-to-one, and during our call, she likes to doodle in her notebook. And I'm totally fine with that because I know that that's how she can better process what we're talking about. So this list was just like some examples of things that you can look for, whether you're a leader or look inside yourself. Is there anything that I mentioned here that you feel like, oh, this is something I struggle with, or oh, this is something that doesn't come easy to me, okay? Whether you're neurodivergent or not, ask for support from your company, from your manager, from your team, okay? Ask for support. And if you feel like you can't and your company isn't respecting your needs, then you may need to find another company, but that's a whole nother discussion. So this understanding these things and starting to see them in certain people is where you can start to implement change, right? You always want to ask your team members how you can support them. This is something that I always share when I'm coaching leaders as well, as like when someone comes into your team at the beginning, the first thing you should ask them, obviously give them all the, info, tools, all the things they need. How can I best support you? How do you receive feedback the best, right? How can I be a better manager to help you succeed? These are things that you should be asking at the beginning. And when you're having chats with your team members, which should be at least monthly, especially if you work from home, you need to have chats more often with your team because it's going to be super, super important. Also, keep an eye out for changes in mood, drastic changes in underperforming or attitude. These are things that could signal that something isn't working for that person and they need help or to be supported, right? That's what it is, to be supported, not something's wrong and they need to be reprimanded. Something's wrong and they need to be supportive, right? The goal is for you to create an environment where people feel they can come talk to you and you can create a place of inclusion. That is absolutely imperative. So the question comes to is, how can we create a more inclusive environment? And I'm going to list some things. And again, you can think about this for yourself, whether you're a manager, whether you're just a team member to someone else, or running a company, in HR policies, all the things. Let's talk about how you can be more inclusive. So the first thing, communication. Having more clear, detailed, and structured communication, whether it's for tasks, whether it's notes on team meetings, whatever it is, having much more clear instructions. And then besides that is having communication in multiple formats, so verbal and written, so people can go back and look at it. Not everyone works the same. Not everyone can just listen to something and then, memorize it, right? That's not how it works. So that's something really, really important. Another thing of how you can be more inclusive, and I will die on this hill, that companies need to offer hybrid and remote work. If you work on a laptop and all of your work is on a laptop and a screen, you should be able to work from home, period, the end, right? I'm not talking about healthcare workers, police officers, there's certain jobs where you need to be there physically, right? I'm talking about if you work on your laptop and you could technically work from anywhere, you should have remote and hybrid work, right? Since the pandemic, many more companies have been open to this, thank goodness, but it is extremely important. And I'll give you a really good example of why this is so important. So when the pandemic happened, I was working in my corporate company and we had 1 to 2 home office days a week already. So we were already sort of in that vibe. And then when the pandemic happened, from one day to the next, we started working from home 24/7. And since then, they haven't even gone back to the office, right? And it turns out that actually we actually did the numbers. We crunched the numbers. We were more productive as a whole working from home than we were in the office. Think about it. When I was in the office, I was chatting to people. I was going for long lunches, coffee breaks, etc. I don't do that when, I'm working from home. Yes, I chat to people and I have conversations, but they're much shorter and much more formal because you have to Slack someone or schedule a call or whatever it is, right? So it's a totally different vibe. So actually working from home is and can be more productive, especially for someone who gets overstimulated. And if you do get overstimulated, another way to be more inclusive is when you are at work is to have spaces that are low stimulation, having noise canceling headphones available, right? Having regular breaks so that you don't get that sensory overload. These are things that are extremely important to be able to foster that inclusive environment as well. And then of course we can talk about things like trainings, awareness, right? Training leaders better, having workshops about this. That's really important, but that's definitely something that, takes more time and energy to create those trainings. As a leader, as a head of an organization, you can still be inclusive by just starting to make these small changes and pay attention to your team. Another thing that's really important is really giving voice to neurodivergent individuals, giving voice to the workforce, right? We need to make sure that our leadership is inclusive, but if it isn't, that we are giving voice to the people that actually work for the company so that they can let you know what they're looking for. They can let you know what works and what doesn't, whether it's in the form of a survey or giving feedback to their manager. There needs to be a place and a space for this to happen. And of course, overall, there really needs to be this sort of culture of acceptance. And this starts from the top, right? If the CEO, if the head of the company, if head of HR isn't going to be supporting this, then that's definitely going to be an issue. But we really need to foster this inclusive environment where we're just really supporting everyone and we're really open to that sort of feedback, understanding, and really that dialogue as well. Another thing I think is super important, and again, this is not specific to neurodivergent individuals, right? As leaders, when we are looking at performance, we need to look at giving people projects that align with their strengths and interests, as well as looking at performance based on the effort that's being put in and the progress they're making, and not by some rubric that's just generalized for everyone or looking at the amount of time they work on something, right? Everyone works at a different pace. Everyone works best at different times of the day. Everyone works best with different sort of surroundings and an environment. The goal is not to judge how someone works. The goal is to look at the output and the strengths that they have and make sure those match up so that the output can be accommodated and can be the right sort of outcome that we're looking for. This is extremely important. And to go off of this, we need to recognize and celebrate unique strengths among our employees, right? It shouldn't be that, oh, if you want to be a leader, you have to be a great public speaker. No, you can still be a leader and not be a great public speaker, right? I had so many designers that I worked with, graphic designers, they tended to be much more introverted. They hated presenting, hated being in front of people. What, should they not get promoted to a senior designer just because they don't love presenting in front of people? No, I looked at what they were good at and they were amazing at so many other things and they still deserve a promotion. It's about looking at strengths-based and having a strengths-based approach and looking at that, at what they excel at, rather than looking at what their challenges are or what they don't do well. And that's extremely important, okay? Extremely important. And that's something that's definitely, what we should be talking about. And then again, just having that open and honest conversations, providing those accommodations without stigma, right? That's really important. I had a neurodivergent client and she asked for accommodation at work that wouldn't have cost the company money, nothing. She had everything she needed. She was going to be more productive with it. It wasn't going to affect her in any way. And they literally made a problem out of it. And she felt so bad about it. And I told her, I said, any company that's making you feel bad about it isn't the right company. Like, a manager shouldn't be giving you such negative feedback about, wanting to use something, a tool that's going to help you in your workplace that literally was hurting absolutely nobody, literally wasn't hurting anybody, right? So it's just super important. And, this list is just really there so that you can see how you can start being more inclusive, because I think a lot of times we don't think about it. We don't think about the way we communicate. We don't think about looking at strengths. We don't think about time management, right? We think, oh, if someone doesn't do things the way we do, they're lazy, they procrastinate, they're a bad person, they're a bad colleague. No. I will die on the hill that the majority of people who are underperforming are just in the wrong environment, or they're missing some sort of support that they actually need. I believe that wholeheartedly. And it is our job as leaders, as an organization, even as team members, to support them. It is absolutely our role to support them, because neurodivergent individuals are worth the same. They are beautiful human beings that are worthy of the support. It doesn't matter that their brain works differently than a quote unquote neurotypical. Nowadays, everyone's brain is different. We shouldn't even be categorizing people like this. But again, I digress. So this was a list of how you can start to be more inclusive, things that you can start to look for. Also, if you're neurotypical and you resonated with any of these things, these are things that you can take to your manager or start implementing in your work. Think about what's not working for you at work and think about how you can be more productive and start to advocate for yourself, start to make changes, start to see where things aren't working for you so that you can be more productive. And it's not about working more. It's about doing more in the time you have so that you have more time for other things. I want you to be successful. I want you to succeed, right? And really the goal is just, out of all of this, if you don't take anything else away from this episode, it's about being open to new ways of doing things, being open to change, being open to flexibility, right? It's not just about punching in for 8 hours at a desk and then going home. It's way more than that, right? It's about actually enjoying our work, having a good time, loving what we're doing, feeling comfortable in what we're doing, and having an environment where we can feel like people are advocating for us and that we feel included. And that's really what my mission is as a coach and a consultant. So if you're a company or an organization, you're a leader in an organization that needs help with being more inclusive, wants to be a better leader, wants to be a more inclusive organization, then let me know, because I work with companies specifically to help them create a more inclusive environment. And if it's not you, but you know a company or a leader who could use my support, please let them know about my podcast, forward my email or my Instagram to them. I am here to support, and my mission is to make things better for neurodivergent individuals and for everyone, because I really believe it's going to affect everyone. And if you're looking for a coach one-to-one, I still have coaching slots open for July, and I've opened them up for August as well. So I'm going to put all the link and everything in the show notes as I always do. But of course, you can always DM me on Instagram as well. It was an intense podcast episode, but I feel so strongly about this. So if you got to the end, I'm so happy. Hopefully you got something great out of this episode. I really wanted to show you how you can start thinking differently and really trying new things. So I hope you loved it. Everyone stay cool, sending you all the good vibes. Hope you have an amazing, fabulous week, and I'll catch you in the next episode. And if you love this episode, don't forget to follow the podcast and leave a review. And of course, you can follow me at Coach Deanna DeBolt on TikTok and Instagram. I'll catch you next time.